All right, turning now to the national debate over gay marriage. This week, the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments in a case that could decide whether same-sex marriages are legal in this country. With such a historic ruling at hand, the Washington Post, the New York Times published columns calling for cameras to be allowed inside the nation's highest court, and so have some lawmakers. Now, the justices have cited various reasons for keeping cameras out, but is it time to lift that ban? And obviously, it was one of the big stories this week, everything that was happening at the Supreme Court, and it did lend to the conversation of, should it be time now for that court to be open so we can see, we can hear the arguments? So we do have recordings of the arguments, but is it time for cameras? Nolan, I'm going to start to you.
Well, yeah,
to be in the court.
You've got live audio. You might as well have cameras. I don't think there's going to be any risk of grandstanding in the Supreme Court. It just makes sense.
That's it.
Yeah, well, I think it does make sense. The justices typically or historically have opposed this not because they didn't want to be on camera, but because they didn't want to give a platform to the lawyers who are arguing the cases. You would attract, I think, some people who might want to get cases there so that they could be on TV arguing in front of the justice. And I suppose that's a slight risk, but it's a pretty serious place, and it costs a lot of money to get a case to that level. The people who typically argue cases there are veterans and very experienced at it. I'm not sure how much value people would get from seeing it. Frankly, it's not the most exciting thing in the world. A lot of people would be lost. They are arguing not about issues. They are arguing about the law and very arcane points of law. Very frequently, but you're a generation really from having 9 justices or 5 who really understand the value of that sort of public face and media and saying, okay, well, we'll put cameras in here.
I think you might be underestimating the audience, that people should want to know what's going on. And they, you know what? Hey, so maybe it is like C-SPAN where you're sitting there and you're watching.
It's worse than C-SPAN.
Well, you know, even if it's worse than C-SPAN, it's still people's ability to be able to see what is going on in the highest court in the nation. So there isn't this shroud of 400 people get to sit and listen to the arguments, and that's it. And the access to that is what, waiting a week out in line to be able to get those seats? I mean, you covered the court.
Yeah, I mean, and you can hear it now, and I would be interested to see how many people are actually clicking on those buttons and listening to an hour of, you know, I mean, most of the court's cases, you know, there were 4 ERISA cases the first term I was there. Most people don't even know what ERISA means, and the arguments over stuff like that are not exciting. But I think it should be public. I think people should have the opportunity to see what goes on in their name in the highest court in this country.
So, Nolan, if you think that it's something that should happen, where can that push start to come from? Or is this something that it just comes around every big case, every couple of years, people say, we should be able to see inside there, and then it kind of dies off?
I mean, I think it's up to the Supreme Court makes its own rules. I don't think this is a legislative matter or congressional matter.
Well, it makes the rules not just for itself, but also for all federal courts. And so you have district court federal judges who are fine with cameras and have been pushing to open that up, but the Supreme Court can't do it for them and not for itself, and so it's just a non-starter with the justices.
All right, before we leave the conversation, Nolan, did we get an idea of where we think the ruling is going to be in June on gay marriage this week?
I mean, I don't know. I think all the legal experts expect that it'll be a 5-4 vote in favor of gay marriage, but I don't know how much you could tell from that hearing.
Yeah, I think you're going to get I think you'll get a pretty broad ruling talking about how the 14th Amendment doesn't allow you to treat this class of citizens differently, or at least I hope that's what they'll do, and I think that's the inclination of at least 4 justices and probably Justice Kennedy. The question is whether they can get to a 6-3 majority with Justice Roberts with a narrower ruling. He asked a question Tuesday about whether this could be handled under the auspices of gender discrimination, and that was sort of a sign, I think, that he would like to sort of cabin this more narrowly and not make this sort of sweeping pronouncement. But I mean, we'll see in June what they do.